Welcome to Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston, PhD. Glenn has held his doctorate in psychology for more than 30 years and is also a former multi-million-dollar consultant to the big food industry and uses his experience to help you defeat your cravings. This show will help you to focus on dramatically reducing cravings and leave the diet mentality behind, so you can more easily and effortlessly achieve your health, fitness, and body composition goals. Please remember, no doctor-patient relationship is created via this show, and you are responsible for confirming any changes to your diet, health, or psychological routines with an appropriately licensed professional before implementing them. Now, before we get started, if you haven't yet downloaded the free smartphone app to access dozens of these recordings all in one place, as well as to avail yourself of a confidential community for support, motivation, and assistance, please visit the podcast link on defeatyourcravings.com as soon as possible. And now, here's your host, Dr. Glenn Livingston.
Hey, it's the very good Dr. Glenn Livingston with defeatyourcravings.com. I'm here with a kind-hearted man named Lee, who has agreed to let me record this so you can benefit from his experience and strength and hope and wisdom, as well as his trials and tribulations and stumbles and falls. Right, Lee?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the deal. So, Lee, catch us all up. Give me a little history about your struggles with food and how did you come to my work eventually and what happened?
As you say, sometimes I won't go back to the time of the dinosaurs, but I started in second grade. I had a freak medical condition which wound me up in the hospital. I had a staph infection in my hip. Wound up gaining a lot of weight during that time of recovery. I recovered well. I almost died during that time, but I was always kind of a very sort of chubby kid, and I was kind of mocked by friends and family, and in particular, my brother. Went to high school and kind of started a restriction journey at that time and restricted all throughout high school and college. Kind of recovered, but maybe because I was depressed or something, I wound up gaining a lot of weight and began overeating for a long period of time. Maybe about 10 years ago, I started restricting again. I sort of devolved into that and I got involved in CrossFit and was kind of a little bit out of control. And I didn't really begin what I consider to be binge eating until like 2017. I still remember the first time I did that. It was just a freak out of body experience, just something I had never really done before. And I had done that for about 6 years. I went to your program in 2022 and didn't really commit. I was there, I joined the calls and I did all the emails and I did the big why not, and I did all the reputations and everything. I guess out of my heart, I was just kind of going through the motions and sort of kind of relapsed and went back to your program in 2023. I had gone on this kind of long meditation retreat beforehand, and it kind of convinced me to give your program another try and was coached by Harry
Sure.
Robinson.
I
think,
remember Harry. Sure,
yeah,
he's great.
Constantinos, I think, was my first coach.
He's great too.
Both are great. And I stopped binge eating and I just can't even believe it. It's been almost 2 years now. I have to tell you that I actually prepared this timeline before the Zoom call because I'm strangely sort of disassociated from the entire process. I don't know if you have any other clients or people who have this similar situation, but it's almost like somebody else went through this
Hmm.
horrible nightmare. Recently, I've been thinking about trying to reconnect to this history and reconnect to what I actually went through. So that way I can try to help other people who was going through this struggle. So I really
Mhm.
appreciate this opportunity to talk to you about it.
What is it that happened in the coaching with Harry or the 2023 program that worked for you? Was it just that you were more ready because you did the meditation retreat? Was it something in particular that Harry said, something that I said? What was it that snapped you out of it?
All right, that's a good question. It was partly due to this meditation retreat. It was a 10-day retreat where I was meditating for 11 hours a day in a kind of a controlled environment. So that was one of the first times that I had ever witnessed a very strong urge to binge. And I had no opportunity to binge eat. There was no way. I was in the middle of the woods. There wasn't even any binge foods available to me. So that really kind of gave me some confidence that I could actually get through this. When I went to the program with Harry, I think one of the biggest things is kind of a lot of the stuff that you say kind of as an aside. I've listened to like all your podcasts and I've read To Feed Your Cravings. Some of your offhand comments really helped me, like how you talked about this random book called Eat to Live and going on a plant-based diet. I adopted that. And that way of eating has been very satiating and has made it almost trivially easy. So it's a way in which I kind of overcame restriction by doing this program where I eat kind of a lot of food during the day. And so I don't really ever feel hungry. So that was really big. I don't know if you remember talking.
Because if you're mostly eating whole plant foods, you have to eat a lot because there's a lot of fiber and there's not as many concentrated calories and fats and all the excitotoxins to get you to have more.
That's right. That's right. And it's one of these things where if you're eating a lot of processed carbs, maybe ultra processed carbohydrates, is I feel like you can eat like thousands of calories and then get hungry very soon thereafter. It doesn't have the fiber content, as you say. And then you're eating green leafy vegetables and beans. There's something magical about beans themselves. And my hunger cravings just kind of go away. I become very satiated and full. Not only do I not want to overeat, I almost physically can't overeat. And there's a way of cooking that is delicious. Nowadays, one of my favorite things to eat is tofu and beans and apples. I remember you always were saying that apples can taste very, very sweet to you after a while.
If you're not eating sugar.
If
Yeah.
you're not sugar, man, he does not know what he's talking about. This is absolute. But now I can say after a while, I almost can't even have certain apples because they're almost too sweet. I go with the Granny Smith, a little bit sour, and I can sort of stomach them. That was huge. Another really big thing is yoga. Do you remember talking
I would
about
talk
yoga?
about yoga all the time.
Oh,
I
you
love
do.
yoga. Yeah.
There's something about building up equanimity. There's something about building up that muscle when you're doing asana. You're putting yourself in all these kind of uncomfortable positions, and you're not supposed to grimace. You're supposed to kind of allow any sensations that are happening in that moment. And that really carries over pretty much directly. So that way you have the pig is squealing very, very loud. I feel like it's that same muscle where you have to sit with it and build up that equanimity where you can just be like, well, you know what? This isn't me. This is the pig talking.
Discomfort is a part of life and it's temporary. And if you can move through discomfort with grace and equanimity, then you can move through binge urges with grace and equanimity also. So you can think of your yoga practice as an opportunity to learn to deal with discomfort.
That's right. Yeah, it's great to deal with discomfort and boredom. For me, boredom was a big thing where I almost would binge eat just because it was fun. I didn't have anything to do and I didn't want to be bored. And so I think yoga kind of directly kind of helps you notice that all these things are temporary. I would also say that I was very taken with this philosophy called intuitive eating. And I know you've talked about intuitive eating before. It was something that was convincing to me at the time. And I think only after going through your program did I realize that I think it actually was harmful to me. There was a big saying that all foods fit, and that's true in a way. And I really don't think that Evelyn Tribole is really necessarily that far off and not that wrong. But I feel like she kind of led me astray in some sense because I felt like my goal in recovering from binge eating was to be able to have ice cream and cake and everything like that whenever I wanted to and be okay with it. And yet that didn't work because those were binge triggers to me because that's exactly what I would binge on. And they wouldn't be satiating. And I think after having a back and forth with Harry and developing my food rules, I think was far more helpful than that program. I think having discipline to say no to certain things. And I think in the eating disorder community and in intuitive eating, it can be tricky and it's complicated and multifactorial. And especially if you're in recovery, and I'm not saying anything, I don't mean to get involved with any of that, but I think there's something to be said about having discipline to say that, okay, I have a meal plan. I've gone through it with a coach. I know that I'm not restricting. I know that I've covered all my bases nutritionally. And yet there are certain foods because they are triggering to me that I choose not to eat. I think there's certain people, when they hear that, will just say, okay, no, this is wrong. You're doing it wrong. And
There's an underlying philosophy out there that says that any type of a rule is a bad idea. Any type of a rule is restriction. And I always think rules are more like kitchen knives. You can use them poorly for evil purposes, or you can use them to chop vegetables. You could say, well, I have to eat all foods, including ice cream and cake, and I have to allow them and eat when I'm hungry and stop when I'm full. But ice cream and cake aren't really food. They're just not. I mean, we weren't eating them 10,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago. We didn't have that available to us. We don't really have natural defenses against it. They're designed to turn off your ability to know when you're full. I think at some point you have to be able to say this isn't food. At least not for me, it's not. You know that I support everybody. If you really want to have ice cream and cake and you can moderate it, then decide how much is enough and see if you can do that. I think most people do have the capacity to do that, but I don't think we should be taking aim at people's desire to stop eating something that has very little nutritional value with the idea that it's going to create rebellion if they can't eat it. I don't think there's any doctor that's going to diagnose you with an ice cream and cake deficiency. I don't think there's really a nutritional need for ice cream and cake in the diet. And if you're not someone who could control ice cream and cake, and it would be easier for you to say none is a lot better than some, then it's a much freer life to give it up, and you'll
Right.
be okay. Enjoy your health. You'll be okay.
But maybe as kind of Gretchen Rubin says that there's moderators and there's abstainers. And if you are kind of a moderating person, then that's wonderful. That's what you've decided. You've reflected on that works for you. But as someone who's decided to abstain from not from restriction, but from some of these triggering binge foods, then that should also be okay. I feel like, I feel like both approaches for food work for certain people.
Amen, brother.
Mm.
Amen. Yeah, 100%.
So that was helpful. Doing the big why was extremely helpful. I will say that I'm a software developer. I actually sent an email to myself, and I'm still getting these emails every single day that are being generated by AI, and it arrives in my inbox at 6 p.m. Every day it's different. I basically feed it as a prompt, my big why, and it produces this email that I read. And even now that I've been in recovery for so long, I still get them, and it's sort of I get a little dopamine boost each time that I do it.
How did you set that up?
Okay, I have to tell you that as a developer, the way I did it is probably too advanced for some people, but if you Google, there's certain apps that you can integrate into Gmail itself, and there's certain other programs, and I forget what they are exactly, but you can Google it. But you can set up recurring emails, and certain programs, like let's say MailChimp, you actually can send an API request to OpenAI and it can draft emails. I can maybe put on your app or something like a full guide on how to set this up. But the way that I did it is I wrote a Python script to do it.
I see. So you
So
you custom programmed it.
yeah,
Could I upload my big why to ChatGPT and say, send me an email every day, vary the language, make it emotional and punchy, but this is the basic message, and I want you to remind me of it every day?
you would need an additional piece of technology. OpenAI itself doesn't have the capacity to send the emails to you, but if you could integrate it with Gmail somehow, or at the very least, it would give you step-by-step instructions on how to do it. OpenAI could generate the content of it for you, but you would need something like Zapier. Do you know about Zapier, or do you know something called
Yes.
Okay. If you integrated Zapier with it, you could have that send
And for everybody else, Zapier, Zapieer or something.
R. That's right.
Right? It's a connector. It connects different programs, and there's a small fee for doing that.
You'd probably need Zapier, maybe MailChimp and OpenAI, but there could be other technologies that
Okay.
there.
Okay. How interesting. Oh, cool. Very intelligent use of AI. Thank you for letting me know.
It's just great. I'm not sure how helpful it was to me in the moment, but I think it couldn't hurt.
I think of everything related to the big Y as a vitamin more than an antibiotic. And so it might not feel helpful in the moment, but coming at you day after day for 6 months or a year probably makes a big difference.
Right. I also randomly made an app for my phone. I just custom built it. Don't worry, I haven't put it on the App Store or anything. I know it's like all your technology, but
It's okay.
I was able to open up and set reminders to myself, which was also pretty helpful. The biggest thing is momentum, I feel like. Almost kind of like how Duolingo works. You don't really want to kill your bird in Duolingo. Like you want to keep up that streak. And I think after the retreat itself, I had been 10 days without binging. Went on the program. It was like it was a month without binging. And then that was like the longest I had ever been on. And so building up that momentum and building up that streak, I think really got to me where it's like the same way where it's like with your Wordle streak or your Duolingo streak, you don't want to break the chain. And so I think I also didn't want to break that chain as well with binge eating. So
What do you do every day to stay on track?
recently, I feel so confident in my recovery that I don't have to really do anything. So I don't really need to look at the big why, although I do with the email that I get sent. I also have been training, and I actually just completed my first Ironman. I did an Ironman Florida at the beginning of this month. I think doing that, something so crazy like that, has really helped me with my meal plan to not restrict too much and to really fuel myself for workouts. And I think that has sort of been helpful. So I really feel like it doesn't really take up any much of my mental space. I
How did
feel
you get to that point? What was the process of letting go of all the activity and just feeling confident that you were on plan?
that's a good question. I think that going on that nutritarian approach to food, the plant-based diet has been really very helpful.
When you're ready to live and you follow that plan?
That's right. That's right. I follow it pretty religiously. I do think that I've also improved my life in other ways where I've found like a better job and I feel kind of much less depressed than I was before. So I think that has helped. So now that I'm working and in a professional environment, I feel like there's been less mental space. I'm just happier in general as a person, and I think that has helped. I do take your 2 30-minute stress-free walks. Do you remember talking about that?
Of course. Of
Yes,
course.
I think that's really helped. There's been a lot of things. I maintain a constant yoga practice. Meditation has helped a lot. I meditate for about an hour a day.
Dude, I want to be you when I grow up.
Okay.
Look
Well,
at you, man. Look at you. This is great.
well, it was such a nightmare for such a long period of time. One thing that I want to say to some of your listeners who may be struggling is that, yes, we've all been struggling for a long time. Like I've been binge eating for 6 years, but there's a lot of your other listeners who've been struggling for a lot longer. I know you yourself mentioned you were struggling with like for decades.
Yeah.
And it's so destructive and it's so expensive, like buy all the binge foods, tens of thousands of dollars, and many people have probably paid much more. And it's so destructive. But you can get to the other end of it. And it can get to the point where you don't have to worry about it at all, where it's like, I don't even have to talk about the pig because I don't even have those squeals anymore.
You eat what grows and you self-regulate in the healthy way that human beings are supposed to do that. You do yoga, you meditate, you take stress-free breaks every day. And it sounds like you work hard also. It's not like you have a super easy job and are living on the fat of the land. Sounds like you're living a very active and full life. Eat what grows and you self-regulate. That sounds like you discovered that and binging became a thing of the past.
It did. But when you get to the other side of it, I feel like that you grow so much as a human being. I know other people who are in recovery from various different types of substances. There's a lot of character growth. I don't know. Have you experienced that yourself?
Well, yeah, when your pleasure system is ripped away from the instant gratification, then your creative energies have to go somewhere. You'll experience all the things that were blocking you to that point because the food is no longer covering it over. And you'll figure out what your real purpose is, what it is that fulfills you and gives you hope and purpose. And there's a lot of growth in that whole process. I always say that you can stay the same person and just not binge, but inevitably people grow and become a different person when they stop.
Right. Agree with you 100%. There are other parts of my life that are still broken that I need a lot of help with. My life isn't really perfect. Although I have been trying to experiment using this defeat your cravings approach in other areas of my life, but
Oh, so,
that's a different conversation.
okay. Is there anything else that I should be asking you or that you wanted to talk about?
No, I feel like I'm talking to a good friend. I don't know if you remember me from the calls a few years ago, but
I do remember you, Lee. I
yeah.
do.
And it's just been great reconnecting and sort of becoming less disassociated with my own story. And so I hope this helps some people. And
I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people. I appreciate you being willing to come on and share.
of course,
Is there anything you want to ask me or anything that I can do for you?
no, I think I'm good. I appreciate this. This has been great.
All right, Lee, we'll keep in touch. I
All
think
right.
you're doing terrific. It's nice to talk to you.
Likewise. All right.
Okay.
Talk to you later. Thank
Be
you.
well. Bye.
You too. Bye.
And that brings us to the end of today's broadcast of Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston. Now, if you'd like to find out more about the products and services Dr. Glenn offers to help you dramatically reduce your cravings and stop overeating in 90 days or less, please visit defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. That's defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. Thanks.